What's up y'all, Jmaculate here. In today's video, I'll go over a modulation technique you can use to achieve an interesting time stretch effect on the Sonicware Lofi-12 XT. This technique borrows from a time stretching trick on electron groove boxes like the Digitact, where you use an LFO to control the start time of a sample. But when I say time stretch effects, I'm not talking about BPM syncing, where you could have a 100 BPM drum break play in time at 90 BPM. Instead, this trick allows you to add a lo-fi, old-school sounding time stretch sound to your samples, which can be useful for spoken word samples or dialogue. So let's check it out. First, let's look at an example. Here's the original sample.
It was like she was walking on thin air.
And here's the kind of effect you can create with this trick.
It was like she was walking on... It was like she was walking on thin air.
The way this works is you add all these steps with note triggers, so the sample's re-triggering very rapidly. And then as the sample re-triggers, there's a low frequency oscillator, or LFO, that's moving the start point of the sample. So the re-triggers start at later points in the sample, as you can see on the waveform display. And we can amplify the time stretch effect by changing the rate of the LFO to have the re-triggers move more slowly through the sample.
It was walking on thin...
So let's go through setting this up with another sample. It's important to use samples that don't have a lot of empty space at the beginning or end, as that will impact how the modulation moves through the waveform. So I recommend using threshold recording so it activates right when the sound plays, and then being quick about stopping the recording.
Was I dreaming?
Once you have your sample recorded and loaded in, you'll need to make a few adjustments. The first thing to do is set the start point of the sample at the center of the waveform by turning the C knob. The easiest way to do this is by bringing the start point to the middle, then switching to the modulation page and setting the modulation destination to start point. Now you'll see a percentage in the bottom right corner of the screen. This is how far through the sample the start point is, so you're aiming for 50% here. Back on the SND page, set velocity sensitivity to 0 from the voice screen. Then add a note trigger to each step on the track by holding the trackpad down and running your finger across the numbered buttons until they're all red. Now go to the CFG page and clone the pattern by holding Function and turning the A knob. I recommend starting with 32 or 64 steps, but you may need 128 if you're working with a longer sample. And I also recommend setting the note resolution to 1/32. And the last settings we need to change are on the mod page. From here, change the wave type to SAW with the C knob, and bring the rate down to 10 with the A knob, and also bring the depth down to 63 with the B knob. Now press the right auxiliary button to open the detail page and parameter lock a 0 value re-trigger of the modulation on the first step of the pattern by holding down the 1 button, then while still holding it down, turn the B knob once. And set the phase to 180 with the C knob. Now press play and switch over to the waveform view on the SND page to see what's happening.
Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming?
So you can see the playhead moving through the waveform at the rate we set on the mod page. This rate is independent of the pitch, so even pitching the sample up or down will keep it playing at the same rate.
Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming?
And you can change the rate from the mod page with the A knob and have the playhead move more slowly or quickly through the sample.
Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming?
If you increase the rate too much, the sample may start to play back a second time before it reaches the end of the pattern and loops, so you can try adjusting the tempo to try and catch a loop of the sample.
Was I dreaming? 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 Was I dreaming?
And there are some other interesting ways you can mess around with this effect. You can get a strange phaser and reverb type sound by going to the CFG page and turning choke off with the D knob. Then head over to the amp page and adjust the envelope's release with the B knob.
Was I dreaming? 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 Was I dreaming?
Having a high release makes the reverb sound longer, and a low release keeps the reverb sound short. One other interesting effect you can create is a fake reverse playback. To do this, head to the SND page and set the playback to loop mode with the right auxiliary button, and bring the endpoint of the sample all the way back with the D knob. Then from the mod page, change the oscillator wave shape to a reverse saw with the C knob. And lastly, go to the amp page and turn on the envelope. And finally, once you've got the time stretch sample sounding the way you want, your best bet for using it reliably in your composition is to resample it so you have a recording of it that you can trigger without needing to fiddle with the steps and mod parameters.
Was I dreaming? Was I dreaming?
While this tactic's not as practical as BPM syncing, it's fun to mangle sounds and spoken word samples with this and use it as an effect. And by resampling the sounds, you can easily drop them into different patterns in your project. Well, that does it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.